The star station hung in space like a jewel. For 3,000 cycles, it had been the heart of the Galactic Coalition. Ships from 100 worlds docked at its ports every day. Inside its massive halls, decisions were made that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. 3 species ruled this coalition. The Varketh were giants, standing twice as tall as most beings. Their bodies were covered in thick, armor-like skin. They had built their empire through strength and conquest. When the Varketh spoke, others listened, or faced their wrath. The Quilani were different. They were small, with 6 delicate limbs and crystalline eyes that saw more than visible light. Their technology was so advanced, it seemed like magic. Quilani scientists had unlocked secrets of physics that other species could only dream about. They built weapons that could slice through planets and shields that stopped any attack. Then there were the Mersoth. They looked almost like floating jellyfish, their bodies translucent and glowing with inner light. But their true power was invisible. The Mersoth could read minds, share thoughts, and even control weaker beings with their psychic abilities. They served as judges and mediators, able to see truth in any dispute. Together, these 3 species maintained order. They had divided the galaxy into sectors. Each species controlled their territory, and peace treaties kept them from fighting each other. It was not perfect, but it worked. Wars were rare. Trade flourished. Most beings lived their lives without fear of invasion or chaos. But on this day, something changed everything. The asteroid appeared without warning. It was massive, larger than most moons. Sensors detected it too late. The calculations were simple and terrifying. In 6 hours, it would crash into the central station. Millions would die. The heart of the coalition would be destroyed. War Master Grelthorn of the Varketh took command immediately. His voice boomed across communication channels. "Prepare kinetic missiles. We will shatter this rock into dust." 3 Varketh dreadnoughts moved into position. Each ship was 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could level cities. They fired their most powerful missiles. Explosive warheads, the size of buildings, streaked through space and struck the asteroid. The explosions were beautiful, like small suns blooming in the darkness. But when the light faded, the asteroid was still there, barely scratched. Its dense core had absorbed the impacts without breaking. Grelthorn's face darkened. Again, full bombardment. They fired everything. Hundreds of missiles. The asteroid's surface melted and cracked, but its trajectory did not change. It kept coming. Science Director Velmora of the Quilani watched from her command ship. Her crystalline eyes analyzed every detail. "The Varketh approach is crude and ineffective," she announced. "We will use precision." The Quilani vessels were small and elegant, shaped like flowers made of metal. They moved with impossible grace. Blue laser beams shot from their weapons, focused so tightly they could cut through atoms. The beams carved into the asteroid, drilling deep. For a moment, it seemed to work. Then the beams scattered. The asteroid's composition was irregular, filled with pockets of different materials. The precision lasers could not maintain their focus. They cut shallow grooves, but nothing more. Velmora's calm expression cracked. "This should not be possible. Our calculations were perfect." High Consul Threshnell of the Mersoth gathered their psychic collective. 50 Mersoth minds joined together, creating a mental force that could move mountains. They reached out with their combined power, attempting to phase shift the asteroid, to push it into another dimension temporarily. The Mersoth glowed brighter and brighter. The air around them hummed with invisible energy. They pushed with everything they had. The asteroid did not move. Its composition somehow resisted their psychic manipulation. It was not alive, but it was not purely physical either. Some strange mixture of elements made it immune to their power. Threshnell's mental voice echoed with something rare for the Mersoth. "Fear. We cannot stop it. Nothing we have will work. Panic spread through the station. Evacuation ships began launching, but there was not enough time. Too many people, too few ships. Families huddled together. Soldiers stood at their posts, not knowing what else to do. The Coalition's 3 mightiest species had failed. Then a new signal appeared on the sensors. A ship was entering the system. It was small, barely the size of a Varketh shuttle. Its design was unusual, functional rather than beautiful. The hull showed signs of long travel. This was an explorer, not a warship. The communications officer on the station tried to hail the ship. "Unknown vessel. You must leave immediately. This system is in danger." A voice responded in awkward but understandable galactic standard. "This is Captain Sang Woo of the human exploration vessel Taeguk. We detected your distress. Can we help?" On the Varketh command ship, Grelthorn laughed. It was not a kind sound. "A tiny ship from an unknown species wants to help? Tell them to leave before they die with us." But on the Taeguk, Captain Sang-woo was already talking with his crew. Engineer Tae-yang was studying the asteroid through their sensors. His fingers moved across holographic displays, calculating vectors and composition. "It is dense but not solid all through," Tae-yang said. "There are stress points. If we hit them right, we can break it apart or change its direction." Sang-woo nodded. "Can we do it in time?" "Maybe. We need to get close. Very close." The Taeguk moved toward the asteroid. The Coalition ships watched in confusion. What could this small vessel possibly do? Their advanced weapons had failed. What did these humans have that could make a difference? Sang-woo did not ask for permission. There was no time. The Taeguk accelerated, its engines burning bright. They approached the asteroid from an angle, matching its rotation. Tae-yang suited up and took 4 enhanced fusion charges from their cargo hold. These charges were not designed as weapons. Humans used them for mining and construction. But Tae-yang had modified them, increasing their yield. He attached magnetic clamps and spacewalked to the asteroid's surface. The asteroid was rough and cold. Tae-yang could feel its vibration through his suit as it tumbled through space. He moved carefully, placing each charge at the exact points he had calculated. Stress fractures in the rock, places where the right explosion would split the whole thing. Back on the Taeguk, Sang-woo monitored the time. 47 minutes until impact. Tae-yang finished his work and returned to the ship. They pulled away to a safe distance. "Detonate," Sang-woo ordered. The charges exploded simultaneously. It was not the massive fireworks show of Varketh missiles. It was controlled, precise. The asteroid shuddered. Cracks spread like lightning across its surface. Then it split into dozens of smaller pieces. More importantly, the momentum changed. The fragments spread out, following new trajectories. Most would miss the station completely. A few small pieces might hit, but the shields could handle those. The Coalition station erupted in cheers. Ships confirmed the calculations. They were safe. This unknown species, with their small ship and simple explosives, had succeeded where the 3 great powers had failed. On the Varketh command ship, Grelthorn stood in silence. His pride was wounded, but he was alive. On the Quilani vessel, Velmora's crystalline eyes focused on the Taeguk with new intensity. And in the Mersoth gathering, Threshnall tried to read the minds of these humans and found only blankness. Who were these people? Where had they come from? And what else were they capable of? The emergency council meeting was called within hours. The Great Hall of the Coalition Station filled with representatives from all 3 ruling species. Holographic displays showed the asteroid debris field, still drifting harmlessly past. In the center of attention was a simple image of the Taeguk, the small human ship that had saved them all. War Master Grelthorn paced back and forth, his heavy footsteps shaking the floor. "We must know what weapons they possess. No primitive species should have that kind of power. A Science Director Velmora studied the data from the explosion. Their technology is crude. Chemical reactions and nuclear fusion. Nothing we have not known for millennia. Yet the application was effective. End 1. 2020. Too effective, High Consul Threshnell said, their voice echoing with psychic resonance. And I cannot read them. Their minds are closed to me. This has never happened before. Grelthorn stopped pacing. Then, they are using mental shields. Advanced technology. No, Threshnell replied. It is natural. Their brain chemistry is simply different. They are blind to us, and we are blind to them. This information made the council nervous. The Mursoth had always been able to sense deception, to know the true intentions of any being. Without that ability, how could they trust these humans? Captain Songwoo had returned to the Taeguk and was preparing to leave the system. He had never expected gratitude, and in truth, he was not interested in it. His mission was exploration. They had stumbled into this situation by accident. Now, it was time to continue their journey. But as he gave the order to depart, a new message arrived. It was not a request. It was a demand. The Coalition Council required the humans to present themselves for formal inquiry. Sangwoo read the message twice. His crew gathered around him. Engineer Taeyang scratched his head. Inquiry? We saved them. They are afraid of what they do not understand, Sangwoo said. We should leave. But before he could give the order, another voice came over the communication system. It was calm and professional, speaking perfect galactic standard. Captain Sangwoo, this is Ambassador Nari of the human diplomatic vessel Sejong. Please hold your position. I am 3 hours away. Sangwoo sighed. Of course, Earth had sent a diplomat. The government always sent diplomats. Acknowledged, Ambassador. We will wait. The Sejong arrived exactly on time. It was larger than the Taeguk, but still small by coalition standards. Its design was practical, built for long journeys rather than intimidation. When Nari transported over to the coalition station, she brought only 2 aides and a small container. The council members saw her for the first time. Humans looked fragile. No thick armor like the Varketh. No crystalline augmentation like the Quilani. No psychic glow like the Mursoth. Just soft skin and simple clothing. She was small, barely reaching Grelthorn's waist. Grelthorn looked down at her. You are the representative of this human species? I am, Nari replied with a slight bow. Thank you for allowing me to address this council. You speak our language well, Velmora observed. How long have you been listening to our communications? Several months, Nari admitted. Our ship detected coalition signals while exploring this sector. We learned your language from broadcasts. It is how we make contact with new species. Threshnell's mental presence pressed against Nari, trying to read her intentions. They found nothing. It was like pressing against a wall. Your minds are closed to us. This is concerning. Nari nodded. I understand. You rely on telepathy to know truth from lies. We do not have that ability. We must trust words and actions instead. Trust? Grelthorn's laugh was harsh. You arrive in our space, demonstrate unknown capabilities, and ask for trust? Actually, Nari said calmly, you asked us here. Captain Songwoo was leaving. He has exploration to continue. This silenced Grelthorn momentarily. Velmora spoke next. Your ship used simple fusion devices to accomplish what our advanced weapons could not. Explain. We camp on use of Velmora. We camp leakst. We camp on use Levendakov. We camp leaksprest. We camp leaksprest. Nari opened the container she had brought. Inside were 3 items. A book, a crystal storage device, and a small sculpture. I brought gifts. This book contains mathematical proofs developed by human scientists. The crystal has our history, both good and terrible. The sculpture is art, showing how we see beauty. She placed them on the council table. To answer your question, we used old technology because it was what we had. We are not advanced like you. We are explorers, not conquerors. When we saw the problem, we thought about physics, mass, velocity, stress points, simple things, too simple. Velmora said. Our calculations were precise. They should have worked. Perhaps they were too precise. Taeyong's voice came over Nari's communicator. She had given him permission to listen. You tried to cut the asteroid or phase it. We just tried to break it. Sometimes simple is better. Grelthorn slammed his hand on the table. Your engineer dares to lecture us? Nari did not flinch. He is sharing information. That is not a lecture. That is cooperation. The council members looked at each other. This human showed no fear, but also no arrogance. She was direct, but respectful. It was confusing. Threshnell picked up the crystal containing human history. They absorbed its contents psychically, experiencing thousands of years in moments. What they saw disturbed them. Humans had warred constantly. Nations rose and fell. Weapons grew more terrible. Nuclear fire had scarred their homeworld. Your species is violent, Threshnell said. You have killed billions of your own kind. Nari did not deny it. Yes, we have done terrible things. We have made mistakes that cost countless lives. We have been cruel and stupid and short-sighted. And you admit this? Velmora asked, surprised. Why would I lie? Nari spread her hands. Our history is what it is. But we learned from it. Every war taught us the cost of violence. Every mistake showed us a better path. We are not perfect, but we are trying to be better. We are trying to be better. Grelthorn studied her. You learned? The Varketh are warriors. We do not apologize for strength. I am not apologizing, Nari replied. Strength has its place. But wisdom is knowing when to use it, and when to hold back. Captain Sang-woo could have left you to die. The asteroid was not his problem, but he chose to help because it was the right thing to do. This statement hung in the air. The council had not considered that perspective. They had assumed humans intervened because they wanted something. Recognition, perhaps. Territory. Resources. But what if they had helped simply because they could? Velmora examined the mathematical proofs Nari had brought. They were elegant in their own way. Not as advanced as Quilani mathematics, but clever. These humans found shortcuts, intuitive leaps that formal logic might miss. Your science is creative, she admitted. Unconventional. We have to be, Nari said. We do not have your advantages. No natural armor. No psychic abilities. No technology handed down from ancient empires. Everything we have, we built ourselves. We failed many times before we succeeded. Threshnell spoke again, their tone softer. What do you want from us, Ambassador Nari? Nari smiled. Nothing. We are explorers. We want to learn about the galaxy, meet new species, share knowledge. If you want us to leave your space, we will. If you want to establish relations, we are open to that as well. And if we see you as a threat, Grelthorn asked, then you see us as a threat, Nari said simply. We cannot control your perceptions. We can only control our actions. We saved your station because people needed help. That is who we are. The council dismissed her to deliberate privately. The three species argued for hours. Grelthorn wanted to restrict human movement, to monitor them. Velmora wanted to study their technology. Threshnell was uncertain but intrigued by their unique minds. Finally, they reached a decision. Humans would be allowed to stay in coalition space temporarily, but they would be tested. 3 challenges to determine their true capabilities and intentions. If they passed, they could apply for associate membership. If they failed, they would be asked to leave. When Nari heard the decision, she nodded. We accept. What are the challenges? Grelthorn smiled, showing sharp teeth. You will see soon enough, Ambassador. Let us see if your adaptability is as impressive as you claim. The first challenge came 3 days later. Warmaster Grelthorn stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. He had designed this test himself. It would show these humans their place in the natural order. 5 of their small ships against 2 of our dreadnoughts, he told his officers. A generous advantage. They should be honored. Admiral Deho commanded the human fleet from the bridge of his frigate. The ship was called the Indomitable, though by coalition standards, it was anything but. It carried light weapons and basic shields. The other 4 human ships were similar. Together, they had less firepower than a single Varketh dreadnought. Deho studied the tactical situation calmly. He was old for a ship commander, his hair gray and his face lined with experience. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before joining the exploration fleet. He knew what it meant to face a superior enemy. They expect us to fight head-on, he said to his crew. That is what Varketh do. They have honor in direct combat. So we do not fight head-on? His tactical officer asked. No. We survive. And if we survive long enough, that is victory. The simulation began. It was not using real weapons, but the sensors and movement were genuine. If the computer determined a ship would be destroyed, it would be removed from the exercise. The goal was simple. Disable or destroy the opposing fleet. The Varketh dreadnoughts moved forward in formation. They were massive, their hulls covered in heavy plating. Their weapons could fire in all directions. Grelthorn's strategy was to get close enough to use his superior firepower to crush the human ships one by one. Deho ordered his ships to scatter. They broke formation immediately, each frigate moving in a different direction. The Varketh tried to follow, but their ships were slow. Built for power, not speed. Fire on the lead dreadnought, Deho ordered. All ships, full barrage. Then retreat. The human frigates unleashed everything they had. Missiles, lasers, kinetic rounds. The attack did minimal damage to the dreadnought's thick armor. But that was not the point. Grelthorn turned his ships to pursue the attackers, but the human ships were already gone, boosting away at maximum acceleration. The Varketh followed, confident in their inevitable victory. Then the humans turned and attacked again from a different angle. Another barrage, another retreat. They are running, one of Grelthorn's officers said. Cowards. But Grelthorn was beginning to understand. No! They are making us chase them. Separating us. The battle continued for 2 hours. The human ships never stayed still. They would attack, retreat, circle around, and attack again. Sometimes all 5 would strike together, sometimes just 1 or 2. They used asteroids for cover, ducked behind debris, and constantly changed direction. The Varketh were growing frustrated. They had scored hits, but the human ships were small targets, hard to track. Meanwhile, the constant maneuvering was stressing the dreadnought engines. Systems began overheating. Then Deho sprang his trap. He had been herding the Varketh ships, slowly, patiently, into a specific position. When they were finally where he wanted them, he gave the order. 2 human ships appeared in front of the dreadnoughts, seemingly damaged and vulnerable. Grelthorn saw an opportunity and ordered his ships to fire all forward weapons. It was the moment Deho had been waiting for. The other 3 human frigates attacked from behind, focusing on the dreadnought's engine sections. The Varketh shields were strong in front, but weaker in the rear. Several systems took critical damage. The simulation ended with the Varketh ships crippled and the human ships still mobile. Technically, it was a draw. The humans could not have destroyed the dreadnoughts, but the Varketh could not catch them. Grelthorn sat in silence. His pride was wounded, but his respect for these humans grew. They did not fight with honor, but they fought smart. The second challenge was Velmora's creation. She gathered the human engineers in a Quilani research facility. The room was filled with exotic equipment, displays showing energy equations that would take years to understand. "You claim to be creative problem solvers," Velmora said. "Here is your problem. A colony world needs a portable power source. It must provide energy for 5,000 people indefinitely. Our solutions require infrastructure you do not have. Show us what you can create." Taeyang and his team examined the requirements. They had 72 hours. The Quilani expected them to fail or produce something primitive that barely worked. Taeyang did not sleep for 3 days. He worked with materials the Quilani provided, combining them in ways that made the scientists uncomfortable. Fusion reactors were mixed with solar collection panels. Biofuel cells were integrated into the same system. It was messy, illogical by Quilani standards. "This is not elegant," one Quilani scientist complained. "There are redundant systems everywhere." "Exactly," Taeyang replied, his eyes red from exhaustion. "If one system fails, another takes over. You build for perfection. We build for survival." When he presented the finished power source, Velmora examined it with skepticism. It was ugly. Cables and components were exposed. The design had no aesthetic unity, but when she activated it, the system worked. It provided stable power, and the redundant systems meant it could repair itself partially. "It is not elegant," Velmora admitted. "But it is functional. Your approach is like using a hammer when a scalpel would be more appropriate." "Sometimes a hammer is what you need," Taeyang said, finally allowing himself to sit down. "You can perform surgery with a scalpel, but you cannot build a house." The third challenge belonged to the Mersoth. High Consul Threshnall brought Ambassador Nari to a chamber where 4 species representatives sat in tense silence. These species had been fighting for decades over resources, territory, and ancient grudges. The Mersoth usually resolved such conflicts through mental harmonization, but that would not work on Nari. "Use your words, human," Threshnall said. "Bring them peace." Nari spent the first day simply listening. Each species had legitimate grievances. Each had suffered losses. Each believed they were the victims. The situation seemed impossible. Aber. On the second day, she met with each representative privately. She did not argue or take sides. She asked questions. What do you need to survive? What do you fear most? What would you sacrifice for peace? On the third day, she brought them together again. She said, "But you are really fighting over fear. You fear that if the others get what they need, you will lose what you have." The representatives started to argue, but Nari held up her hand. "Let me finish. I have a proposal. You share the disputed territory in cycles. Each species gets access for part of the year. You establish joint facilities that benefit everyone. You create a council where disputes are resolved through discussion, not violence." "That is impossible," one representative said. "We cannot trust them." "Then do not trust them," Nari replied. "Trust the system. Trust the rules. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. We learned that peace is not about trust. It is about mutual benefit. When everyone gains more from cooperation than conflict, war becomes pointless." It took days of negotiation. But slowly, the representatives agreed to try. A treaty was drafted. It was not perfect, but it was a start. Threshnall observed the entire process with amazement. "You did with words what requires our deepest psychic connection." "How?" Nari smiled tiredly. "Because we are not telepaths. We had to learn how to communicate across our differences, how to find common ground without reading minds. It made us good at listening." The 3 challenges were complete. The Coalition Council gathered again to discuss the results. Grelthorn was impressed despite himself. Velmora admitted the humans had value. Threshnall felt something unusual. Hope They are not like us, Grellthorn said. But perhaps that is their strength. They are adaptable, Velmora agreed. Their technology may be crude, but their thinking is flexible. Threshnell made the final observation. They learn. From mistakes, from others, from experience. They never stop learning. The Council prepared to offer humans associate membership, a path toward full inclusion in the Coalition. But before they could send the message, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Unknown ships had entered Coalition space. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They were moving fast, attacking everything in their path. A new threat had arrived. And it was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The first reports came from the outer colonies. 3 worlds went silent within hours. When Coalition scouts arrived to investigate, they found ruins. Cities were destroyed, populations missing, or dead. The attackers left nothing but destruction. The Krell had arrived. They were unlike any species the Coalition had encountered. Their ships were organic, grown rather than built. They moved in perfect coordination, like a single organism split into many bodies. Because that is exactly what they were. The Krell were a hive mind. Billions of individuals sharing one consciousness. Warmaster Grell Thorn assembled the Varketh battle fleet. 50 dreadnoughts. The pride of his species. They met the Krell swarm at the defense line, around a major colony world. Grellthorn was confident. His ships had never lost a direct engagement. The battle lasted 12 minutes. The Krell did not fight with honor or strategy in the Varketh sense. They simply attacked from all directions at once. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. They rammed the dreadnoughts, sacrificing themselves to create openings for others. The Varketh fought bravely, but they were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Grellthorn barely escaped with 15 ships. His hands shook as he sent the retreat order. The mighty Varketh had been defeated. It seemed impossible. Science Director Velmora tried next. She deployed the Quilani defense grid. Weapons satellites that could target 1,000 enemies simultaneously, with perfect accuracy. The technology was flawless. Each shot hit its target with lethal precision, but the Krell adapted. Their organic ships changed, grew new armor that dispersed the laser energy. Within hours, weapons that had been perfectly effective became useless. The Quilani could not adjust fast enough. Their technology was too specialized, too dependent on specific frequencies and methods. The defense grid fell. Velmora watched in horror as decades of research and development became worthless in a single day. High Consul Threshnell gathered every Mersoth psychic. They would assault the Krell mind directly, overwhelm the hive consciousness with pure mental force. It was their ultimate weapon, used only in the most desperate situations. The Mersoth attacked. Their combined psychic power was like a storm. But when it hit the Krell hive mind, it simply vanished. The Krell consciousness was so vast, so alien, that the Mersoth could not even comprehend it. It was like trying to fight the ocean with a sword. The Mersoth psychics recoiled, some of them damaged by the attempt. Threshnell's voice was hollow. We cannot touch them. Their minds are beyond our reach. The Coalition was in crisis. In less than a week, they had lost 7 worlds and millions of lives. The 3 great species, each supreme in their own way, were helpless against this new threat. Emergency meetings were held. Some suggested retreat, abandoning entire sectors. Others wanted to fight to the last, though no one knew how to win. On the human ship Sejong, Ambassador Nari called a meeting of the human representatives. Captain Sungwoo attended via communication link, as did Admiral Daeho and Engineer Taeyang. Dr. Haewon, the xenobiologist, was there in person, her face grave. The Coalition is going to fall, Sangwoo said bluntly. These Krell will destroy them. Then they will find Earth, How long do we have? Nari asked. If the coalition collapses completely? Maybe a year? Maybe less. Deho studied the tactical reports the coalition had shared. Their military doctrine is failing. Varketh use overwhelming force in direct combat. Krell have more force. Quilani use precision technology. Krell adapt faster than they can adjust. Murzoth use psychic power. Krell are immune. So the coalition's strengths are useless, Tae-Yang observed. What about their weaknesses? Dr. Haewon spoke up. I have been analyzing the Krell biology from the combat footage. They are a hive mind. Yes, but that mind requires coordination. There must be central nodes, queen organisms that manage segments of the swarm. Can we find these queens? Nari asked. Possibly. They would emit specific biological signatures, but getting close enough to attack them would be suicide. The Krell protect their queens with everything. Sang-woo leaned forward. The coalition cannot help. They are too rigid in their thinking. But we are adaptable. We have always fought enemies stronger than us. You are suggesting we intervene, Nari said. Earth has not authorized this. Earth is 2 months away by communication, Deho replied. By the time we get authorization, it will be too late. We must decide now. 2. Nari looked at each of them. They were so few. 1 diplomat, 1 explorer, 1 admiral, 1 engineer, 1 scientist. Against a swarm that had defeated 3 galactic powers. It should have been an easy decision. Walk away. Save themselves. But that was not who humans were. We help them, Nari said. All in favor? Every hand went up. Nari went to the Coalition Council and made the offer. The 3 species were skeptical. Grelthorn actually laughed. You? 5 small ships? What can you possibly do that we could not? Something different, Nari replied. Let us try. What do you have to lose? The truth was, they had everything to lose, and nothing left to try. The council agreed. Admiral Deho was given tactical command of the defense forces. It was an unprecedented move, placing a human in charge of coalition military assets. But these were unprecedented times. Deho immediately began changing their approach. He studied the Krell attack patterns for days, looking for any weakness. He found it in their strength. The hive mind coordinated perfectly, but it followed patterns. When attacked from the front, the Krell responded in specific ways. When flanked, different responses. The hive was adaptable, but not creative. They react, Deho explained to the coalition commanders. They do not innovate. They face a threat and adapt to overcome it, but they expect certain types of threats. How does that help us? Velmora asked. We do things they do not expect. We do not fight to win battles. We fight to reach the queens. Dr. Haewon had located 3 queen nodes using biological scans. They were deep in Krell-controlled territory, protected by thousands of ships. A direct assault would be suicide. So Deho planned something else. The human frigates would be the bait. They would attack Krell positions using erratic, unpredictable tactics, draw the swarm's attention. Meanwhile, coalition ships would sneak through the gaps in a completely different formation than they normally used. Not battle groups, but single ships spread out, moving quietly. Tae-Yang modified the coalition ships, reducing their energy signatures. He also developed new weapons, chemical compounds that disrupted Krell organic tissue, biological agents that confused their coordination. Things the Krell had never encountered, because the coalition species had never used such crude methods. The operation began. Captain Sang-woo led the human ships in a mad dash through Krell space. They attacked randomly, retreated chaotically, did everything wrong by military standards. The Krell swarm followed, trying to eliminate these annoying pests. Behind them, coalition forces moved toward the queen nodes. It was working. Then, everything went wrong. One of the Queen nodes detected the approaching coalition ships and called for reinforcements. The Krell swarm split, part pursuing the humans, part returning to defend the Queens. Sang-Woo saw this on his sensors. "We are out of time," he said to his crew. "New plan. We go for the Queen ourselves." "Captain, that is suicide," his tactical officer protested. "Yes," Sang-Woo agreed. He opened a channel to the other human ships. "Indomitable, Guardian, Phoenix, continue the distraction. Taeguk is going in alone." Daeho's voice came over the communication. "Captain, you cannot. Admiral, you taught us that sometimes sacrifice is necessary. Take care of them." Sang-Woo cut the channel and changed course. The Taeguk dove straight into the heart of the Krell swarm. Organic ships swarmed around it like angry insects. The shields took hit after hit. Hull breaches appeared. Systems failed. But the Taeguk kept going. Sang-Woo's crew knew what this meant. They did not complain. They did their jobs. Engineer Tae-Young's apprentice kept the engines running past their limits. The weapons officer fired until the guns melted. They reached the Queen node. It was enormous, a living ship the size of a moon. The Taeguk was dying, but it had one last task. Sang-Woo armed every explosive they had, included the ship's own reactor. "For Earth," he said quietly. "For everyone." The Taeguk rammed the Queen node and detonated. The explosion was massive. The Queen died, and with it, millions of Krell lost their coordination. The hive mind fractured. The swarm became confused, ships attacking each other, unable to process the sudden absence of their guiding intelligence. The coalition forces capitalized on the chaos. They destroyed 2 more Queen nodes. The Krell began retreating. Their unity shattered. The battle was won, but the cost was high. The Taeguk was gone. Captain Sang-Woo and his entire crew were dead. They had saved the coalition, but they would never know it. The memorial service was held on the coalition station, in the Great Hall where decisions were made. But this day was not about politics or power. This day was about remembering those who had fallen. Captain Sang-Woo and his crew. The coalition soldiers who had died in the fighting. All those lost to the Krell invasion. Ambassador Nari stood before the gathered crowd. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the hall. She wore black, a human tradition of mourning. In her hands, she held a small metal fragment from the Taeguk, recovered from the debris field. "Captain Sang-Woo did not want to be a hero," Nari said, her voice steady despite the pain. "He was an explorer. He wanted to see new worlds, meet new species, learn new things. But when the time came to choose between his dreams and doing what was right, he chose right." She looked at the coalition leaders sitting in the front row. Grellthorn, Velmora, Threshnall. "He taught you something. All of us. That strength is not just physical power. Intelligence is not just advanced technology. Wisdom is not just reading minds. True might comes from the willingness to sacrifice yourself for others." War Master Grellthorn stood. The massive Varketh walked to the memorial, where images of the fallen were displayed. He placed his weapon, a ceremonial blade passed down through generations, at the base of Sang-Woo's image. "I mocked him," Grellthorn said, his voice rough with emotion. "I thought humans were weak, small ships, simple weapons, no honor in combat. But I was wrong. He showed more honor in his death than I have shown in my entire life. We Varketh pride ourselves on courage. Captain Sang-Woo knew he would die, and went anyway. That is true courage." Science Director Velmora approached next. She carried a crystalline device, a Quilani data core containing the sum of their scientific knowledge. She placed it beside Grellthorn's blade. "I thought humans were primitive," Velmora said. "Their technology was crude, their methods inefficient. But Engineer Tae-Young taught me that elegance without adaptability is weakness." The Krell adapted to our weapons because our weapons were perfect for specific conditions. Human weapons were imperfect, varied, unpredictable. That unpredictability saved us. High Consul Threshnall floated forward. The Mersoth glowed brightly, their psychic presence filling the room with emotion. They placed a small, glowing orb at the memorial. A psychic crystal that would preserve the memory of this moment forever. I could not read their minds, Threshnall said. This frightened me. I thought minds we could not see were minds we could not trust. But Ambassador Nari showed me that connection does not require telepathy. It requires empathy, understanding, respect. Humans give these freely, without needing to read thoughts. The service continued for hours. Species after species came forward with their tributes. By the end, the memorial was covered in gifts from across the galaxy, a testament to those who had given everything. 3 days later, the Coalition Council called a formal session. Ambassador Nari was asked to attend. She entered the hall, noting that it was packed with observers. Something important was happening. Grelthorn spoke first. Ambassador Nari, we asked you to undergo 3 challenges to prove human worth. You succeeded. But then, something greater happened. You proved your worth not through tests, but through action. Velmora continued. We 3 species have ruled this coalition for millennia. We thought we were the mightiest because we were the strongest, the smartest, the most gifted. We were wrong. Threshnall finished the thought. True might is not power over others. It is the strength to protect others, to adapt, to learn, to sacrifice. Humanity has shown us this. The 3 leaders stood together. We formally request that humanity join the Coalition Council as the 4th pillar. Not as associates, not as probationary members, but as equals. As leaders. Nari was silent for a long moment. She thought about Earth, so far away. About Captain Sang-Woo and his crew, who would never see this moment. About what this meant for humanity's future. I accept, she said, on behalf of humanity, but we accept as partners, not rulers. We do not want power over others. We want to work with you, learn from you, and help where we can. The hall erupted in celebration. For the first time in coalition history, a 4th species would join the leadership. The galaxy was changing. In the months that followed, that change became visible everywhere. Admiral Daeho was appointed Joint Defense Coordinator. He began training coalition forces in new tactics. Flexibility over rigid doctrine. Adaptability over perfect execution. Coalition soldiers learned to think creatively, to improvise when plans failed. Daeho also became close friends with Grelthorn. The 2 veterans would spend hours discussing strategy and sharing war stories. Grelthorn learned to laugh at his own mistakes. Daeho learned about Varkath honor and found value in their warrior culture. Engineer Taeyang survived the war and began working with Quilani scientists. Together, they created hybrid technologies. Quilani precision, combined with human redundancy. The result was equipment that was both advanced and reliable. Velmora admitted that his messy approach had merit. You taught me to embrace imperfection, she told him once. Perfection is fragile. Imperfection endures. Dr. Haywan established the Interspecies Institute, dedicated to understanding the biology and culture of all galaxy species. She worked closely with the Mersoth, learning about psychic abilities while teaching them about human neurology. Together, they made discoveries neither could have achieved alone. Threshnall developed a new ability through this work. They could not read human minds, but they learned to read human emotions through observation and empathy. It was slower than telepathy, but in some ways more meaningful. When I read a mind, I know thoughts, Threshnall explained. But when I read a face, a voice, a gesture, I understand the person. There is a difference. Human colony ships began arriving in coalition space. Settlements were established on frontier worlds. Humans integrated into galactic society, bringing their culture and accepting others. Music, art, food, and ideas flowed between species. There were challenges, of course. Some species distrusted the humans. Some humans wanted to dominate rather than cooperate. But Nari, now a full coalition counselor, worked tirelessly to bridge these gaps. She reminded everyone that peace was a constant effort, not a permanent state. 5 years after the Krell invasion, a joint coalition human fleet prepared to depart on a deep space exploration mission. The fleet included ships from all 4 ruling species. Admiral Day-Ho stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching the preparations. Beside him were Grell Thorn, Velmora, and Threshnall. 4 leaders, 4 species, 1 purpose. To explore, to learn, to protect. Nari gave a speech before the fleet departed. It was broadcast across the entire coalition, reaching billions of beings. 5 years ago, you thought you were the mightiest, she said. The strongest warriors, the most brilliant scientists, the most gifted telepaths. You were proud of what you were. Then humans walked in. We were none of those things. We were not the strongest, or the smartest, or the most gifted. She smiled. But we were survivors. We were adaptable. We were willing to learn, to fail, to try again. And most importantly, we were willing to help, even at great cost to ourselves. Captain Sang-Woo taught you that might is not about power. It is about purpose. She gestured to the fleet. Now we go forward together. Not as humans and Varkith and Quilani and Mursoth. As people of the galaxy. As partners. The universe is vast and full of wonders and dangers. But we will face it together. The fleet departed to thunderous applause. As they entered faster than light travel and vanished into the stars, a new era began. The coalition was stronger now, not because of weapons or technology, but because they had learned what humanity had always known. True might comes from unity, from adaptability, from the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. In dark space, far beyond the coalition's borders, something stirred. Krell survivors, scattered and learning. They had underestimated these humans once. They would not make that mistake again. New queens were growing, new strategies forming. The hive was adapting, but they would find that humans were not alone anymore. The galaxy had changed, and it would be ready. Ambassador Nari stood in her office, looking at the stars. She thought about Sang-Woo, about all those who had died to protect others. She thought about Earth, her home, and the incredible journey that had brought humanity here. We showed them hope, she whispered, and hope is the mightiest force of all. Outside, the galaxy turned. New friendships formed. New discoveries were made. New challenges would come. But for now, there was peace. And that was worth everything.